Plea of guilty to a capital offense. A capital offense is one which, under the law existing at the time of its commission and of the application for admission to bail, may be punished with death. Note, however, that while the definition of a capital offense has been retained in the rules of court by virtue of RA 9346, the death penalty shall no longer be imposed. When the accused pleads guilty to a capital offense, it is not proper for the court to immediately render judgment on the basis of the guilty plea. Instead, the court is mandated to perform the following acts. 1. To conduct a searching inquiry, to ascertain the voluntariness of the plea, and to ascertain whether or not the accused has full comprehension of the consequences of his plea. 2. To require the prosecution to prove the following: the guilt of the accused and the precise degree of his culpability. 3. To ask the accused if he wishes to present evidence in his behalf and be allowed to do so if he so desires. Note that under the revised guidelines for continuous trial of criminal cases, in those cases involving capital punishment, judgment shall not be immediately rendered even if the accused pleads guilty to the information. This means that the guidelines set forth in Section 3 of Rule 116 shall be observed whether the accused pleads guilty to a capital offense. The process is mandatory, and absent any showing that it has been duly observed, a searching inquiry cannot be said to have been aptly undertaken. In capital offenses, one cannot just lean on the presumption that the accused has understood his plea. A mere warning that the accused faces the supreme penalty of death is insufficient. The tenor of the rule clearly precludes the court from determining the guilt of the accused from a mere plea of guilt to a capital offense. The court is still mandated to conduct a searching inquiry to determine whether or not the plea was voluntary and that the accused had full comprehension of the consequences of his plea. Even after the court is satisfied of the voluntariness of the plea and the full comprehension of its consequences, the court is still required to order the prosecution to prove the guilt of the accused and the precise degree of his culpability. The rationale behind the rule is that the courts must proceed with more care where the possible punishment is in its severest form, namely death, for the reason that the execution of such a sentence is irreversible. The primordial purpose is to avoid improvident pleas of guilt on the part of an accused where grave crimes are involved, since he might be admitting his guilt before the court and thus forfeiting his significance and consequence of his plea. Moreover, the requirement of taking further evidence would aid the court on appellate review in determining the propriety or impropriety of the plea.